Hello everyone and welcome to this video, and today I'm going to be doing a review of this album here. It is Echo and the Bunnymen's Porcupine. So I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So before I get started, I would just firstly like to apologise for the large amount of time I've gone without a video. It's been maybe about 3 weeks now, I think. Basically I've just been super busy. I've had a lot of uni work to be handed in, coursework and whatnot, and then I've also you might notice a change of location. I have actually moved out, I've moved house, so I've been doing that over the last couple of weeks as well. So yeah, I've been very busy, and finally now just getting the chance to catch up on videos. This review was requested by none other than Richard McCook, who is a bit of a legend here in the VC. I absolutely love his videos, especially the ones where he does sort of the singles rankings on various artists. They're very informative, really entertaining videos, so I will link his channel in the description to this one. So yeah, he asked me to look at Porcupine maybe about a good month ago now, and yeah, finally just got round to it. This was Echo and the Bunnymen's third album, released on the 4th of February in 1983. Following the previous album, Heaven Up Here, the band had a spate of writer's block and had great difficulty in finding and sort of writing new songs. There was also some inter-band tensions brewing as well, they weren't getting on with each other particularly well around the making of this album. And consequently, recording this was quite a difficult affair, with the sessions largely lacking the spontaneity of the first two albums. And there was multiple attempts to record this. Apparently they recorded pretty much the whole album. However, it was rejected by the record label, so it was completely re-recorded again. Upon its release, the album did get mostly mixed critical reviews. The Enemy said that the band were turning on their own greatest hits and savaging them, and they continued to say that it horrifies more for its uniform lack of inspiration, that every song copies directly from earlier tracks without preserving anything of their energy or invention. So quite scathing words there, and similarly a lot of other critics were not too kind to the album. However, this didn't stop its commercial success. It reached number 2 here on the UK charts, becoming their highest charting album, while it also reached 137 over in America, which is not bad for a post-punk band. However, in the years gone by, it is now considered as one of the band's best albums. So I will just show you my vinyl copy of it here. If you couldn't tell, this is actually a Japanese import of it. I got this at a record fair for quite a cheap price actually. It was £8 this, and it's a Japanese one with the obi strip there. So I can't take that off, but firstly, yeah, the cover is fantastic. It's certainly one of the most striking things about the album. Taken in Iceland, this photo, out this waterfall. It looks quite a dangerous photo shoot, but they got this image, and they also done some filming as well. They issued, I think it was a short, maybe a half-hour sort of promo film, with some performances and kind of shots of the bands in Iceland here. So yeah, great artwork, very sort of cold sort of feel to it, and sort of continues that theme of the Echo and the Bunnymen albums, that's each album kind of has a different sort of weather theme to it, which is really cool. So yeah, that's the cover, and then inside here you've just got a sort of lyric insert here. So just got that, it opens up, it's got, I think actually was supposed to go the other way, so it just has more artwork there, the track listing again, and then as I said, lyrics and some Japanese text as well on the inside. I'm not sure if that came with all international versions of the album, and then we've got the records here just in this plastic sleeve, but it's on the usual Kurova record label, which all the other Echo and the Bunnymen albums are on there. So yeah, that's the vinyl record looked at. Okay, so I'll now go over each of the album's songs in detail. So I will score each track out of 10, and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So we kick things off with The Cutter, which is quite a powerful song. It's got some really nice like instrumentation on it. It's kind of got this sort of synth line kind of going through it. Gives it a kind of Eastern sort of feel to it. This very propulsive bass line once again, and like yeah, I just think it's a really great song. It's arranged really well, especially like that sort of like the phase out bit. Like I'm either happy, lost, will I still recoil when the skin is lost. That bit was just kind of like the synth behind it. Sounds really great. It was also the band's one of their first sort of big hits here in the UK. It reached number 8 on the charts. So yeah, The Cutter, really great song, and would get, yeah, for me, a 10 out of 10. When you say it's love, do you mean the back of love? The next track in the album is called The Back of Love, which was, this was the band's first top 20 single. I believe this one was issued before The Cutter. And yes, for me though, it does have a very similar feel to The Cutter though. And I think might have worked a little bit better later on, like on the album, maybe like opening the second side, like or something. Because it's a very similar kind of sounding songs. It's got a kind of, so like again, it's got maybe a bit more of an intense sort of punky kind of feel to it. Like, and sort of like the chorus, like sort of like when like they're singing, like when taking advantage of breaking the back of love, Ian McCulloch's really putting in a lot, like to like his vocal performance. But there is a lot going on, like with the track production-wise, maybe a bit too much going on, like I would say. And yeah, just for me, it's not one of my absolute favourite top-tier Echo and the Bunnymen songs. Although a lot of people do rate this track super highly and say it's one of their best songs like they've ever done. For me, would only get an 8 out of 10 there for The Back of Love. Next up is called My White Devil, which begins with quite sort of mysterious start to this one. We've got some interesting arrangement choices on it with a kind of prominent like mariba solo, which gives the track quite a distinctive sort of feel to it. Lyrically, again, it's quite an abstract sort of song, and it's quite hard to grasp like what it's really about. He sings like, "Me on the wind, I will begin," and yeah, certainly a change from the more kind of straight ahead sort of punk and post-punk like off like the first 2 albums. It's very, yeah, like sort of like the band sort of like spreading the wings a bit, trying something different, and I think it mostly works, this track. So yeah, it would get a 8 out of 10 from me. Am I the half of half and half, or am I the half that's whole? Next track on the album is called Clay, which is a more faster paced song. This it's the structure is quite sort of straight ahead, like sort of like rock sort of feel, kind of with again a classic sort of Bunnymen chorus, like when I came apart I wasn't made of sand, when you fell apart clay crumbled in my hands, he sings with it. And again, you've got this sort of squalling guitars on it. Really atmospheric song, and yeah, one of my favourites on the album. So yeah, that one would get a 9 out of 10. Final track now on the first side is the title track, Porcupine, which is starts off quite sort of medieval kind of vibe to it, with these sort of pounding drums and again these sort of fuzzy guitars like on it. Then it kind of goes into a more sort of different direction with a more sort of straight ahead sort of rock kind of feel to it. And it's kind of here where I feel the track starts to get a little bit lost. McCulloch's vocals become a lot more muffled. It's hard to sort of hear like what like he's kind of saying, and I just think it goes on a little bit too long. So yeah, for me, Porcupine will get a 6 out of 10. Till the next one up, opening the second side, is Heads Will Roll, which is again one of the better tracks on the album. I think it's quite a catchy song, but again with these sort of Eastern influences, like which kind of complement the track rather than sort of like take over the song and like detract like from it. Got a great chorus, like he sings like, "What if no one's calling? God then must be falling," and yeah, I think it's a perfectly good song. It's maybe, yeah, it's certainly for me like not like top tier like Echo and the Bunnymen, but it's another pretty decent track there. So that one will get an 8 out of 10. When you ask the question, did you miss the meaning? Okay, now the next track on the album is called Ripeness, which is a more kind of funky sort of song, especially again like kind of like the grooves and kind of like very sort of fast-paced guitar riff, and then you've got like Will Sargent. He overdubs a lot of other sort of passages, and that gives it quite an expansive kind of feel to this one. Very multi-layered sort of song this. But for me, it kind of feels like it goes on for on for far too long. Like, even though the song itself, like, is only it's 4 minutes 50 seconds, it feels like I got a proper 6-7 minute track. This, maybe because it is like such like a fast paced like sort of song, yeah, for me, I think it does go on maybe a little bit too long, but still not a bad song though. So we'll get a 7 out of 10 there for ripeness. And then we kind of bring things down a little bit with the next track called Higher Hell, which has a more sort of psychedelic, sort of menacing kind of flavour to it. It's a slow burning song, this, again, with sort of like, again, a menacing kind of guitar riff, which is slowly introduced like on like the track. Like, it doesn't sort of open with it, it very much sort of leads you into the track, so I do quite like the structure of it. And like by the end of the track though, you've got all these layers kind of like interwoven, and I think it maybe would have worked a little bit better had they kind of just kept it a bit more live, this song, like a little bit more sort of stripped back, like, but still like intense, like still building up again like intensity, but maybe just a little bit more stripped back without all the overdubbing. And I think that kind of just like by the end of the track sort of takes over the song and kind of starts to detract from it like a little bit. So yeah, Higher Hell for me overall would get a 7 out of 10. Next song up is Gods Will Be Gods, which is a more energetic affair, this song. You've got a fantastic bass line, really propulses the song through through its length, and I kind of swear the song gets faster and faster like as it goes on, but then it kind of just sort of ends like abruptly, and that's all, it runs out of steam. And like kind of like, yeah, I said, once again they throw everything like at the song production wise. You've got all manner like electric guitar sound effects, and then I think there's even some strings on it as well. Like, I kind of got a bit of like an Ocean Rain like sort of vibe, like on this song certainly looks ahead to that next album of theirs. So yeah, overall, yeah, Gods Will Be Gods will get an 8 out of 10. And the next track up closes the album, and I think it is, again, it's one of the stronger tracks for me. It's called In Bluer Skies, and this song has a kind of more sort of programmed kind of feel to it. I won't quite say it's like electro pop like or anything like that, but certainly it's got this kind of sort of drum machine kind of going on, but I still think it sounds quite ahead of its time. I do like that chorus line like on it. He sings like, I'm counting on your heavy heart to keep it from falling apart. And yeah, it's a more straight ahead sort of song. It's a lot more kind of stripped back than most of the other songs, but I think it's all the better for it, and it makes a really great closing track there. So yeah, In Bluer Skies would get a 9 out of 10 from me. Okay, so overall, this album would score 80%. So I do think this is a good album here. It's not quite a great album for me, though. I think some of the tracks do have kind of similar feels to it. A lot of them do kind of get lost in the mix, like a little bit. Like a lot of them, like either lack distinctiveness, but also sort of like are sort of mired in sort of like overproduction and lots of different kind of sort of like instruments being used. And it works on some tracks, but like on other songs, I think a maybe more stripped back approach might have been better. And they would sort of continue on this vein like a little bit on the next album, Ocean Rain, although it's a lot more orchestrated and a lot more kind of precision focused, that album, and I think like it's a lot more better for it. This one, they're still kind of trying to find their feet a little bit like after the first two albums. I think it would have been improved had they included the non-album single from around this time, Never Stop. I think it might have been recorded after like the album came out though, so it's maybe like not a valid point really, like, but that's a great song, and I think could have fitted on the album quite well. I made it just like maybe like that little bit more accessible, because it is a challenging record. This, it's certainly like if like you're not familiar with Echo and the Bunnymen, I personally wouldn't really start out with this album. I would go for either like a singles compilation or maybe Ocean Rain or even Crocodiles, like if like you kind of want more of like the early kind of stuff. This one, I just think it's a little bit too much like sometimes, and like again you really need to be in the mood like to appreciate it. So yeah, that's been my review of Porcupine. So yes, I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I will see you all next time for the next review. Goodbye.